In your experience, are there key spirits or demons that you have identified as being particularly prevalent today? And can you describe their function?
If you removed sex and money as issues from people, then I'd probably be out of work. But if actually it comes back to where we start with most ministry sessions, the key one is unforgiveness and retribution. Those are the most prevalent, and they probably always have been, in terms of not forgiving, in terms of wanting your own back or justice, and hardening your heart, which then leads to anger, jealousy, murderous spirit. All of these are geared around preservation of self and a sense of injustice, and that then is outworked. So we're told that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. We can ask him to help. We can ask for justice. We can cry out for justice. But if we take justice into our own hands or into our own hearts, and that forms bitterness, then that's where so much trouble arises. Wanting things we can't have. Greed, bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment. There's a lot of occult spirits that can come in that we have to deal with, from worshipping other gods and being involved in that, and they can be quite powerful. They make an awful lot of noise, and they can be quite dramatic. But actually, if I think about it, the most important one is unforgiveness. If God is love, then anything that's the opposite of that, hatred, envy, greed, resentment, retribution, these are difficult ones, especially if the person has been provoked. So we're told in the book of Peter, we're told by Christ, all Christians will suffer. If you're not prepared to suffer for God and for the gospel, then when it comes along, and it will, you're going to think, what the heck's happening here? We could all talk about forgiveness. I've preached about it a lot, but I've had to actually work it out as well. I've actually had to do it. And you think, oh no, this shouldn't happen to me. I shouldn't have to have this level of forgiveness. This isn't right. This isn't fair. And yet, if you're going to do it and you're going to be engaged in it, you've got to be able to love and keep forgiving. Because if your heart turns, and I did meet one guy at a prison actually, a chaplain in a prison, where the younger chaplain was in a good place and we really got on. The older guy had clearly come over that edge, and he got his finger out. And he was talking about the inmates in the prison. It was a prison for sex offenders. He got his finger out and he went, they think they can get one over on me. They can't. And just watching his body language and listening to his voice, you saw that he'd moved away from the grace of the gospel and forgiveness and love. It doesn't mean to say we're a pushover or stupid, or we think sin's great, or we don't discern what's going on with somebody. It doesn't make you some nice idiot. And there is a massive difference between what is nice and what is good. Jesus was good. He wasn't necessarily nice. You know, when he's out there with the whip round the temple, or turning around to Peter and saying, get behind me, Satan, or saying, you terrible people, you sinful people, how long must I be with you? He wasn't always nice. There's this idea of this blue-eyed, sort of white-robed man floating around in some kind of like, sort of steeped in sort of niceness and grace and that. It's not like that, is it? Good can be sometimes quite tough. I talked about maybe this ex-paedophile being taken by the Lord. Good sometimes can look quite shocking. What is truly good, and good isn't necessarily nice. So some of the spirits that make the most noise are the occult ones, but actually the ones that are the hardest to overcome are the ones where Christians, even though they're prepared to suffer, or should be, which is supposed to count the cost, have been inflicted such injustice that their heart starts to harden. And in that, all kinds of other spirits can come in, and all kinds of other damage can be done. And Satan is much better off turning us into something more like him than actually killing us. By the time he's physically trying to kill you, well, you're doing pretty well. But actually, most of the time, it's trying to harden your heart and turn you from the gospel of love and forgiveness. That is the key area of the demonic that we must fight and overcome.